Hey there folks, this is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop, and this is the second video in my new monthly review series, Sunday School Saturdays, in which I'm looking back on and analyzing some old Christian kids shows I used to watch. A special thank you to all of you who saw my first video on VeggieTales. I've been wanting to do that video for so long, so I'm just glad that it's now out there for everyone to see, so thank you all for enjoying it. Today, we're going back to before there was VeggieTales, back to 5 years before I was born. An age that my mom is always surprised to find I know a little something about. I sing along to a Journey song on the radio and she's like, "How do you know Journey?" I've been around. At least enough to know that in that era, the world was getting the greatest Christian music of all, brought to them by none other than Carmen.
He's a great God, a righteous King, ruler over everything. He's a great God, we will proclaim honor and glory to His name.
I just had to. Now heaven is rocking out to those sick beats. So on to today's show, the Christian Wonder Years, also known as McGee and Me. Beginning in 1989, this video series was created by the Christian ministry Focus on the Family, and it actually received considerable praise, not just from its target audience, but also from media outlets like Entertainment Weekly and the Chicago Tribune. I myself liked this series when I was a kid. I can't say that I was a huge fan, but I'd watch it whenever my older sister borrowed the videos from the church library. How well does it hold up now? Well, let's get into it. The show's 12 episodes are about a boy named Nicholas, an aspiring artist who goes through experiences at school and at home learning biblical lessons, along with his little imaginary cartoon friend McGee. Or at least I think he's imaginary, but I'll get to that. We see the conception of this animate animation in the show's theme sequence, which starts with this trippy chain reaction that Nick invented. We can see he took a few pages from Tom's book of creating an unnecessarily long process to drop a safe for his method of turning on his pencil sharpener. He finishes coloring his cartoon character, and he comes to life. It took 5 whole seconds after McGee emerges from the page for Nick to find this mildly surprising. Wait, what just, whoa, that doesn't usually happen. Would have been nice of you, Nick, to give him a better hairdo. I'm half expecting to see Jack Skellington appear on that thing. So each episode opens with Nick reading a passage from his Bible that states the message of the episode, while McGee makes a slapstick illustration out of it.
Telling lies about someone is as harmful as hitting him with an axe. Or shooting him with a sharp arrow.
Wow, McGee imitated the screaming goat before the goat even screamed. Yes, memes transcend time, they're just that powerful. These opening cartoon scenes don't get very many laughs, though, and even at times where they start to, they botch it.
Even when walking.
Okay, within 1 second of that fish appearing, I immediately thought, it's a tiger shark. And then it does this.
Even when walking through the dark valley of death.
Yeah, that wasn't needed. Anyone could have looked at that thing and gotten it. One of the foremost rules of comedy, do not explain your jokes. It's after those opening cartoon sketches that the story begins, and the first one I'm going to look at is A Star in the Breaking. The episode starts with Nick in the living room with his 2 sisters, watching a program called Trash TV. Well, it's nice to see that the Jerry Springer Show got honest. Actually, it's a children's game show hosted by discount Kevin Bacon, where 2 kids try to win by doing everything they can to make their opponent look like a walking trash pile. At the end of the show, Nick gets some surprising news when the host announces next week's contestants.
All right, from Ashcroft, we have Amy Packard, and from Eastfield, Nicholas Martin.
That's you! Cool!
Take a look at this. One of the reasons we chose old Nicholas is because of this drawing he included.
Wait a minute, you can increase your chances of getting on a game show by sending in a drawing of yours? So that's all that me and my sister had to do to get on Supermarket Sweep? Now you tell me. While the family, too, is excited for this big time for Nick, McGee keeps making things awkward for him.
What are you gonna wear?
Forget the clothes. What's my share of the prize money?
Nothing. Nothing?
I don't think they're going to let you do that on TV, do you?
Huh, those were the days.
Well, what do you think could have gotten into that dog?
Did this dog take a joke?
I just love having a dog that shares my imagination. At his school, teachers express their support for Nick, and his classmates begin treating him like a celebrity.
So where's the shades? Now, why would I hide a face like this with shades?
More specifically, why would he want to hide those enormous blue eyes with shades? Only he can face Alexander Daddario in a staring contest. But still probably go into a daze eventually. That night, we get this really pointless exchange between Nick's parents.
You don't think all this attention's going to his head, do you?
Nicholas? Not a chance.
For one, there's been nothing that his mom has seen at this point that would prompt her to ask that question. And for another, the audience does not need it to be suggested because we can see it starting to happen. Show, don't tell. Nick has an animated dream about being a huge star, stepping out of a limo with the bottom of his shoes disappearing into the green screen red carpet, and that seems to be the tipping point with his inflating ego.
Sarah, could you grab me the milk?
Oh, Sarah, don't forget to give Jamie her lunch money, okay?
Right, yeah. Sugar. You forgot my spoon. I'm not your maid. Does that mean you're not gonna get me my spoon?
You have the delayed responsiveness of a sloth at the DMV. He goes to school with the same high and mighty attitude, even toward his best friends, Louis and Renee.
Me and some of the guys were thinking we should go down to the studio with you and check it out.
Look, guys, I'm the one that got on the show, okay? Not you, me. And I'll see what I can do. And maybe if you're lucky, I can...
Hey, don't do me any favors.
Me neither. Have it your way.
Forget it, man. This hall's not big enough for us, and your head, too.
Yeah, most of the acting from the kids in the show is the kind of overacting you generally expect from child actors in the 80s. They didn't star in much else afterwards. Lewis's actor, Brent Kelly, was only in one other movie, Kickboxer 2, The Road Back. Shaylisa Hurt, who plays Renee, she would go on to be a real estate agent in Denver. Strange thing about her, she does look 10 years old here, but somehow also looks like she's 45 at the same time. Is she related to Caitlin Bennett? As for Nick's actor, Joe DeMann, I don't want to make light of his lack of roles after McGee and Me because a factor in this may have been his alcoholism later in life. You can hear him give his recovery testimony in a 5-minute short called Not Alone. Back to the story, it's not just Nick's real friends who aren't taking kindly to his attitude. McGee still expects to be brought along on the show.
You're not going on the show. I am.
Listen, Sasquatch, you wouldn't even be on that show if it wasn't for me.
Not really. He was only chosen because of your mere existence, which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Nick.
You jarhead?
Oh yeah?
Oh, snappy comeback.
Ferret nose. Miss me, pickle lips.
Combining a random object with a body part is not how snappy comebacks work. You toast your pancreas. And this is where it gets really confusing as to whether or not McGee is only in Nick's head. Obviously, no one else, except for the dog, could hear or see him. And yet in this scene, Nick's younger sister comes up to his room and overhears all the cartoon explosions.
You'll never take me alive, Nosehair.
Make up your mind, is McGee in his imagination or not? I seriously hoped I would never have to think about the logic of the Boss Baby again. Or at least not until the sequel comes out. Why?
If you want to be that way, be that way. Besides, who needs a stupid cartoon anyway?
That's actually kind of a good question. What does McGee contribute to this whole series? There's the opening cartoon sketch with him, plus another in the middle of every episode, but those and all of his appearances really just seem to be there in case the kids in the audience get bored of seeing real people. And sometimes, he's the one that gets Nick into trouble, like in one episode where he talks him into trespassing on an old man's property. So I would have to agree with Nick here, he might actually be better off without him. Nick's big day arrives, and he's welcomed onto the set of Trash TV, wholly confident that he's got this in the bag. They begin rolling, and in the first round, Nick faces off against his competitor Amy in a western gunfight with ketchup and mustard bottles, as they try to drench each other. Nick wins the first round, but doesn't have nearly as much luck from then on out. He loses at pie throwing, beanbag throwing, and this game where they have to climb up a chocolate slide to retrieve a flag. It eventually gets to the point where it's like the show gives up and just has them pillow fight.
You better look again. For a big shot, you ain't so high.
You know, if you're going to dramatize the kids in the audience pointing and laughing at Nick by slowing it down, maybe pick a different music choice. Round after round, Nick loses, and Amy, not far from literally, wipes the floor with him. Is it not clear enough that Nick is learning his lesson about humility? Don't worry, he'll read us the same Bible verse he read at the start of the episode.
For everyone who tries to honor himself shall be humbled, and he who humbles himself shall be honored.
He goes home and makes up with McGee, though things still aren't great with him and his friends at school.
Hey, Mr. Big Shot, what happened? Where's all your friends now?
Well, I'd say not far, considering how the two of you are already friends again at the beginning of the next episode. But having been humbled, he's back to his old self, and that's the end. I'll give a star in the breaking this. Out of the first 5 episodes of the show, it's the only one that doesn't have my biggest pet peeve, and that is the songs by Jim Covell, the entirety of which are seriously just preaching the message.
All the things that you see and hear, they will come back to you. So be careful what you choose.
And for some reason, they find it necessary to play these songs twice in every episode. On one occasion, in the show's first video, The Big Lie, after the song is played the first time, it starts again a whole 48 seconds later. I'm not kidding. And if they can't find a place to play the song for a second time during the episode, they'll play it during the end credits in place of the theme music. Now, the messages in this series are, for the most part, perfectly fine, though sometimes they're a bit confusing in the way that they're delivered. The best example of this is in what was, back in the day, my favorite episode of the show, Skate Expectations. It starts in Nick's geography class being taught by who you'd think from watching the whole series is the only teacher in the school. Over the course of these videos, we see her as a geography teacher, history teacher, and drama instructor. I do know of professors who teach different topics within the same field, but that wide of a variety? Next you're going to tell me she's the principal and nurse. So after class, Nick sees Derek, the school bully, harassing one of his classmates. The kid being bullied is a short little boy named Philip, played by Whit Hertford, who's most famous as the kid that Dr. Grant freaks out in Jurassic Park. Yep, that's him. And he would actually face those raptor claws in action when he was the voice of Hip in The Land Before Time 3.
Don't tell Miss Harmon, but he's making me give him the answers to the geography quiz.
You ought to just give him all the wrong answers. I mean, it's not like he's never flunked a test before.
The day of the quiz comes, and Nick figures that he can score some extra credit by drawing a map of the Great Lakes.
Nice math, Nick.
Sorry, kid, only when you're homeschooled does that work. Nick also now realizes that Philip took his advice seriously, giving Derek the most ridiculous answers to the quiz.
Mr. Kreider, I must say that of all the quiz papers, yours was the most creative. Thank you.
Of course, that wasn't a compliment, but we know deep down the teacher was amused by his answers, because she makes him read them aloud for the entire class.
Number 8, where are the Great Plains located?
At the great airports.
No, you gotta be a little more specific than that. It's any airport that's not located in Terrytown. Yeah, I'm gonna be reviewing that one soon enough.
Derek, if you want to waste your time here, that's up to you. But when you turn in a paper like this, you cheat only yourself.
Hey, Philip, want to go down to the airport and watch some Great Plains? I think you're pretty funny, don't you?
Hey, give Philip back his lunch.
Who's gonna make me, Martin? You?
Sure, why not? You sounded pretty scared when the idea crossed your mind just now. Who's gonna make me, Martin? You?
Look, Kreider, we're all sick and tired of the way you're picking on everybody. Right, guys?
Well, not everybody fly off at once.
So seeing that no one else will defend Philip, Nick decides it's time for him to do something. The first thing to do would be to get help from school staff, but instead he takes the matter entirely into his own hands.
Take that, you cur, for the underdog, for mom and apple pie, for season tickets to the opera, for...
Cute, McGee. So where do I dig up a suit of armor?
Hey, that's it. I have found yon solution. This'll be so easy you can just skate through it.
So for once, McGee actually made himself useful. He gives Nick an idea for how to go about defending Philip. So he meets up with Derek the next day to make his proposal.
All right, you're on. After school at the flagpole.
No, not a fight. A race. This Saturday, skateboard to skateboard. And if you lose, you lay off with Philip.
But being the bully he is, Derek actually takes his challenge. Odd, you would think he would just turn it down and not even give Philip a chance at escaping his rage.
Great. Thanks again, McGee.
Well, how's I supposed to know he...
Hey, get out of my thoughts.
Where do you keep the graham crackers up here?
Very funny.
So is that meant to be confirmation that McGee really is in Nick's head? Because I'm done thinking about it. Nick starts practicing, and this is the point where we get the first occurrence of this episode's Jim Covell song.
You know the choice is yours. You know what you feel inside. You gotta do what's right.
Okay, to be fair, as this is a training montage, it does work better here than most other instances. By the time Saturday arrives, the situation has gotten the attention of numerous kids from school. Lewis lays out the route, and then the race is underway. And this is the reason why this was my favorite episode when I was a kid. You better believe I was cheering. I was like, yeah, go Nick! He didn't win Trash TV. He deserves to win this time. And to the video's credit, this is not a badly done scene. There's a variety of angles and enough editing to make it fairly exciting. Even though, you guessed it, the song is stuck on repeat.
You know the choice is yours. You know what you feel inside. You gotta do what's right.
So with Nick and Derek already off, Lewis and Renee realize that neither of Derek's dorks showed up at the starting line. Suspecting that they're up to some foul play, they follow the race to find out. While Nick starts to get the upper hand, Lewis and Renee watch as Derek's friends throw obstacles in Nick's path to slow him down. They quickly go back to the starting point to alert everyone. Derek crosses the finish line first, but now everyone is on Nick's side.
Wait a minute! I won this race! Let your mom forget to buy you glasses!
Get lost, Derek. We won that race. You cheated. Yeah, we saw you.
Yeah!
No, this is the most fair and secure skateboard race in history, and to prove it, I'll cheat for real next time. Actually, he accepts it rather easily.
Forget about it, man! You won! Lost!
So, first he's a bully, but one that allows for there to be a chance for his victim to get off the hook, and then he's a cheater, but one that is willing to admit that cheating invalidated his victory. This is one of the least committed antagonists I've ever seen. And this is why I said that the episode's message is unclear. For most of it, it's about standing up for others, and now suddenly it's about sportsmanship, that if you cheat at a game, you automatically lose? Now, I feel like what they're trying to get across here is that it never mattered if Derek crossed the finish line first. Nick already won by doing the right thing, sticking up for Philip. But when it's decided by the fact that Derek cheated, it just obscures the point. Philip thanks Nick for his help, and as the video ends, we find that he does now have something of an idea of what a witty comeback is.
Champion, huh? Stand back and let a true professional show you how it's really done.
Okay, first you fall down and hurt your head. I got that. Now what's my next lesson?
Next lesson? Be consistent with aspect ratios. One other thing about these two episodes, and it's no accident that I'm making this a footnote, they both include a subplot, if you can even call it that, of a family member of Nick's learning the same lesson he does. In A Star in the Breaking, Nick's mom lands an interview. Later she finds out it was for a less significant job than she was expecting, and at the end she's like, hey Nick, I was humbled too. In Skate Expectations, she wants Nick's older sister Sarah to babysit for some friends of hers, but Sarah wants to go golfing that day. And at the end, she tells Nick she decided to forego golfing and help her mom's friends. That's as far as it goes, just 2 or 3 little moments establishing all this. It's like they want to stay on subject but still need padding to make the episode somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes. You'd think so, but then you have to consider this episode, Do the Bright Thing, which runs for just 22 minutes. Heck, McGee even trims down the opening credits.
Right, fine, that's enough of that.
And actually, this is quite a different episode, sort of the wonderful world of autotainment of McGee and Me. But as that episode of VeggieTales prophesied modern internet humor, Do the Bright Thing predicted a beloved Pixar movie.
With a little help from my little buddy Nicholas, we will journey into the amazing and somewhat confusing mind of an average 11-year-old boy.
The premise is McGee inside Nick's brain as Nick faces little dilemmas, with McGee analyzing all of his options of how to deal with them. The difference between this and Inside Out is that the person in the kid's head doesn't seem to have 100% control over what he chooses.
Well, I guess this decision is an easy no.
Oh well, I may as well try.
What?
And if that's still not sufficient enough evidence that Nick is better off without McGee, listen to what happens after the end credits when the screen goes black.
I wonder what this button's for. Oops.
Are we to understand that he just hit the self-destruct button on Nick's head? It's a good thing this wasn't the last episode, otherwise I would have just accepted that. So that was episode number 7 of 9 that were released between summer 1989 and December 1990, and I don't really know why, but the show got a brief revival in summer of 1992 under the title The New Adventures of McGee and Me. These were 3 more episodes, In the Nick of Time, The Blunder Years, and Beauty and the Least, none of which really broke any new ground for the series. They even brought back the moralistic Jim Covell songs after they seemed to stop after episode 5. And yes, they are again played twice per episode, except for in the final video, Beauty and the Least, which plays it 3 times. I guess that was the show's way of going out on a high note. But really the biggest problem with these later episodes is that they don't take note of Nick's development from the earlier ones. What should have been life-defining events for Nick don't seem to have any effect on him just 3 years later. Being on a TV game show and learning humility doesn't stop him from being influenced by the cool kids in middle school and thinking more highly of himself than his friends again. Standing up for a helpless kid and winning against the school bully doesn't affect how he treats his Romanian pen pal when he's in need of hospitality. Even his dad is different. He was a pretty normal father with wise advice and was really collected even when Nick raised his voice at him. In the New Adventures, he's much more of a goofball.
But never fear, the men are here.
Though I do have to give this to Terry Bozeman, who plays Nick's dad. He's probably the only decent actor in the show. It's not a big shock that he's one of the few cast members who has more than 5 IMDb credits. He's most famous for Desperate Housewives and The West Wing, and you might also recognize him as the principal in The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, there is actually one character who does have a pretty flowing progression over the course of all 12 episodes, and surprisingly enough, it's Derek. In episode 1, The Big Lie, he starts out as a bully and a hooligan with no shame, vandalizing an old Native American man's home and disturbing his animals. We next see him as the main antagonist of Skate Expectations, and with the school turned against him at the end of that tape, he's less intimidating when he makes his next appearance, at the beginning of the 6th episode, Back to the Drawing Board.
You playing with crayons again?
Why? Are you missing yours, Derek?
Yeah, well, takes one to know one.
Huh?
Yeah, huh? He then has a major role in 'Twas the Fight Before Christmas, in which Nick discovers that he has an abusive father and is in cahoots with a gang of thieves. Nick approaches him with kindness, and Derek has a change of heart, to the point where he saves Nick's life when he gets attacked by the gang leader. And then finally, in the Blunder Years, he's legitimately concerned about Nick's dissolving relationship with his friends, and gives him a still lightly aggressive but encouraging talk about it. So yeah, Derek is the most consistent and fleshed out character in the whole show. Now there's one more episode I'd like to go over from beginning to end, and that is The Not So Great Escape, an outing that seems to be unpopular even among fans of the show, and I can see why. This was episode number 3, but I saved it for last because, being a movie buff, I've got the most to say about it. It opens with Nick and Lewis playing spies in the yard, and even though it's high noon, Nick's mom tells him to come inside.
Come on in, it'll be getting dark soon.
Mom!
Come in now. Getting dark soon?
Any reasonable person would see this as a ridiculously overprotective nature on his mom's part, but that's not the way that we're supposed to view it. You'll find out why. Inside, Lewis comes across a new movie while flipping through the newspaper.
Hey, check it out! Night of the Blood Freaks, Part 4. In 3D.
Well, that's totally unrealistic. Any horror series back in that day would know to make Part 3 the 3D one. You know, so they can use the ancient trope of Jaws 3D, Amityville 3D, and so on.
Have you seen the commercials?
Oh, yeah.
First, there was Dawn of the Blood Freaks. Then, Day of the Blood Freaks. Then, Twilight.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You're telling me Twilight is a franchise within a franchise? What is life? At school, all the kids are talking about this Night of the Blood Freaks movie.
It's in 3D, and the soundtrack to the movie is by Death Threat.
Oh, I've seen all the freak movies.
Seen them? You starred in them.
This does have me wondering, what exactly is a blood freak? What, you think I'm sick for asking? I wouldn't be at all if they hadn't come up with the name. This one's on you, focus on the family. Lewis and Nick make plans to go to a matinee the next day, but Nick's parents aren't too fond of the idea.
Nicholas wants to go see a movie with Lewis.
Oh, sure, why not? What's it rated?
A real classic. Night of the Blood Freaks. In 3D.
The 3D helps, right? That is, another dimension besides just the blood and guts?
No way. Absolutely not.
But, Dad! Honey, we don't want you filling your mind with that kind of garbage. You know that.
But, Mom!
Jeez, kid, do you have anything at all to add besides that?
But, Mom! But, Dad! But, Mom!
Shut up!
It's not fair. Everybody else gets to go see it, but I have to sit around with a bunch of
Nicholas!
That's it. Go to your room. You're grounded.
Nick storms up to his room and starts talking with McGee.
Look, kid, you watch movies like that long enough, and pretty soon they'll stick a sign on your head that says dump site.
What are you, some kind of film critic or something?
Well, as a matter of fact...
We then get the mid-show animated sequence, which is a mildly funny parody of Siskel and Ebert.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I give this a thumbs up.
No way, if that film was any flatter, it would be in the House of Pancakes. Now, if you want to see a great flick, take a look at the new remake.
You call that fun? Why not just stick your head in a garbage can or something?
Man, Nick, could you created a more boring friend? Someone who can't handle a few bullets and explosions? He probably sets all of his clear play filters to the most sensitive level. But on the day of the movie, Nick and Lewis formulate a plan to get Nick out of the house and to the theater and back unnoticed.
Wait a minute. Blue Fox. Huh? Remember last week's episode? Remember the plan Cyborg 2 used a free Blue Fox in the dreaded Black Tower?
Agents, Blue Fox and Cyborg 2. Codename. What do you expect Code to look like? Well, I'd expect it to be a little less vulgar than that. Are we sure Nick hasn't already snuck out to see some R-rated movies? He sets up this contraption and recording of his voice in his room as backup while he's gone, but as he attempts to evade his mom in the kitchen, his dog causes a disturbance.
What on earth? Whatever. Whatever? Are you alright?
The first time I saw this, I thought that her saying whatever was basically just her asking, whatever is getting into you, dog? But in fact, the dog's name is whatever. What, you just go with the first word that came to your mind when naming him? You probably care about as much for your dog as parents do for their son whom they name Guy. But thanks to whatever having the same power as Nick to not only be able to hear cartoon sounds, but also see McGee, I'm trying to put this together best I can, Nick manages to escape from his house, and he joins up with Lewis to sneak into the theater. You know, I sure hope there wasn't a surcharge for 3D movies back then. You already pay the price of your movie having an unsightly blue and red tint. At home, Nick's plan to disguise his absence works at first.
Who is it?
It's Mom.
I'm drawing right now. Could you come back later?
Okay.
By the way, you know the theme sequence which had the cool chain reaction Nick built with the marble tracks and the mousetrap game parts, establishing how technically inclined he is? You'd think from that it's meant to set up a really important character trait of Nick's, but no, this is the only time in the entire show where that comes into play. When his mom does come back, though, the device begins acting up.
Nicholas, it's Mom. What's going on in there?
Nicholas,
What are you doing? What's it look like? I'm talking to myself.
You know, what I end up doing all the time when I mean to talk to my children.
Let's face it, Mom. He freaked.
Things aren't going any better for Nick at the theater, as he soon realizes the mistake he made going to this movie. Well, gee, could this be the time for...
is this all that you thought it would be? 'Cause now you see.
Yep, because we just won't know what to think or feel without these songs.
What you see is what you get. So you better make...
Hey, keep 3D green. Just make sure it's not blue and red anymore. Nick heads home prepared to own up to his parents, who are waiting patiently for him. Ooh, Night of the Blood Freaks. Sounds delightfully gory. I mean, ick.
Nicholas? Did you go to the movies?
Yes, sir.
Did you enjoy yourself?
No, it was awful.
When your mother and I told you couldn't go, it was for a purpose.
We were trying to protect you.
Just by going to see it, you've put something into your mind to dirty it. It's bound to affect your life. It's garbage in, garbage out, Nicholas.
Okay, here's the thing. The message of being careful about what you expose yourself to, on its face, is a good one. However, I have some issues with the way it's presented in this video. For one, even though there was certainly a lesson for Nick to learn here, anyone watching can see that there's also one for his parents to learn. But they don't. We never see them thinking about what they could have done a little differently, that Nick's urge to disobey them wouldn't have been so fueled. When he complains about never being allowed to do anything, instead of calming him down and then having a talk with him about it, they just tell him he's grounded and leave it at that. It feels like it's trying to say that you as a kid should absolutely never question your parents' parenting, even if it's as absurd as them telling you to come inside because it'll be getting dark soon when it's nowhere near that time. You know, I often think about why young adults who were raised Christian leave the faith, and there are lots of reasons. But I believe that one of the most common is when they've been put under too many restrictions during their life at home. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to let my 11-year-old go see a movie like Night of the Blood Freaks, whatever that is. And it is true that if you're completely careless about what you expose your child to, it's going to have a wholly negative effect on their life. But on the flip side, if you're inordinately restrictive about where they can go or what movies they can see, they're going to feel all the freedom in the world when they get away from you, and become extremely curious and even fascinated with what you've been shielding them from all this time. I can imagine how hard it must be finding the right middle ground, but this is something that I think even some people in the secular film industry get, as we've seen with movies like Lady Bird. I tell you, when I took my mom to see that movie, she was so certain that she was watching herself in a mirror whenever Christine's mom was on screen. She was gut-wrenched every time she criticized her daughter. I had to assure her that she was not like that. I am forever grateful for how my family raised me to be a man of the Lord, and I do think they were pretty fair about what I could watch in my childhood years. Okay, maybe making me wait until I was 13 to see Jurassic Park was a bit much, but I can cut them some slack. My point is, I think there really needs to be a fair amount of communication among parents and their children on this kind of matter, as well as at least a little bit of compromising. You gotta protect your kids, but also prepare them for what's to come in life. Because let's be real, there are things they are eventually going to see that are much worse than a movie. And that brings me to my second problem with the message of The Not So Great Escape. It's the absolute assertion that everything you see on screen is going to affect your life somewhere down the road. I mean, just listen to the song lyrics. What you see is how you'll act. Who says? Granted, movies can be very influential on us. They can make one do something as harmless as ordering their beverage shaken not stirred. And yes, they can inspire a deranged individual to try to assassinate the president. And children are certainly some of the most impressionable, which is why, again, I wouldn't let my kid go see an R-rated gore fest. But the notion that what you see is exactly what you're going to be, like, hey, I was a good, forgiving Christian man, and then I watched Saw and I became a torturing psychopath with a god complex. I see this as the same kind of outdated idea like video games inspire gun violence. I really don't have anything against Focus on the Family, and I don't believe they really think that anyone will lose their conscience just by seeing or hearing something foul. I mean, they didn't write 11-year-old Nick that way. He was able to see on his own how worthless the movie was. But I would think they'd have a little more confidence in what a person can do when they have on the armor of God. This isn't to say that you don't need to take any consideration into what you put before your eyes. To quote Mufasa, being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble. Which is why, as a regular moviegoer, I do still have some limits set for myself. For example, the movie Piranha 3D. From what I've heard, that movie has no substance. The entire thing is just gore and porn ground together. So I've decided that I'm never going to see that. A basic standard that I go by is face the gray and flee from the black. But I know that even when I do end up facing some black, whether it be in a movie or in real life, I know that I have nothing to fear, because nothing of this world can change who I am in Christ. It's as Sir Carmen once said,
if you have the Word of God in your hand, you can be a greater threat to the evil of your day than the evil of your day is a threat to you.
Now, I know these are very debatable topics, so I do want to hear your thoughts on anything I've said. Feel free to let me know in the comments. That's all I've got to say about that episode, so now on to my final thoughts on McGee and Me. I can't say that it's a terrible show. The production values aren't bad. They're much better than the production values in a number of Christian movies nowadays. The messages are well-intentioned, but often ham-fisted, at times confusing, and occasionally questionable. The songs suck, the acting is mostly subpar, and most of the animated scenes don't serve any purpose. I do have some nostalgia connection to it, as I do for pretty much all the shows I'm going to be reviewing this series, but I don't have nearly the same fondness for it as I still do for something like VeggieTales. It's still got its fans, and I think that's great, but for me, this is one that I wouldn't mind erasing. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As for next month's Sunday School Saturdays, I'm going to be looking at another Focus on the Family property, one that you can easily identify by just 7 little notes. So please like and share and subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.
Does that mean you're not gonna get me my spoon?